My sister forced me to watch her kids. Every trip until I went public and shattered her act. Now she's in therapy and I've got a girlfriend. I had to move out of my parents' house because I kept being forced to watch my 3 nephews. Last year, we went on a family vacation to the coast during the summer. I rode with my parents, and they paid for my hotel room. Only I had to share it with 3 wild boys because my sister and her husband wanted a room to themselves. I was promised time to enjoy my own activities on the trip, but instead I ended up stuck caring for the kids. I complained to everyone about it, but I was reminded that I was there for free. The only thing we did that I actually wanted was visiting an art gallery. I always like doing this when I'm at the coast, but the kids were bored out of their minds. This year, my parents planned another beach trip for June and assumed I'd be tagging along the same way as the last year. But I refused. I told them I'd be driving myself and paying for my own hotel so I could have a private room. My parents were shocked and reminded me of how expensive that would be. I told them not to worry. I've got a solid job and a reliable car, so I can afford it. That's when the excuses started. I explained again that last year I was treated like a child instead of an adult on vacation, and this time I want to enjoy myself. My parents told my sister and she called to scream at me, saying I'd ruin the trip if I did my own thing while she had to manage her 3 boys alone. I snapped back that last year she just dumped her responsibilities onto me. I barely got to do anything I wanted, and I was painted as the bad guy just for wanting to see an art gallery. I'm a grown man. I deserve my own vacation too. Now my sister isn't speaking to me and my parents are still pressuring me to ride with them to keep the peace. I'm still refusing, but the guilt is starting to wear on me. Am I the jerk for not giving in? I know it'll be harder for them without me there to help. It had barely been an hour since I posted when I found out my sister is apparently a morning Reddit lurker. She saw my post, and now she's livid. She's furious with me, and upset that nobody in the comments is taking her side. She went on a rant about how hard it is raising triplets and said the least I could do is help, since I'm young and single while she needs a break. I stood my ground, and now she's pulling my parents into it. I'm expecting their call any minute. I'm off work now, so I can share more of what went down. I guess you could say the whole thing exploded. My sister dragged my parents into it. They read my post and were horrified by the constant wave of comments. They're angry that I even posted here, but I told them if they'd listened to me in the first place, I wouldn't have needed to. I'm sick of this keep the peace mentality that always sacrifices me to appease my sister. They ended up going off on her instead. To make a long story short, the entire vacation has been canceled. The hotel wasn't even booked yet, but now my parents are fighting with my sister. She's blaming me, and my nephews are crying because they won't be going to the beach. My sister called me during lunch and basically said I have no life, which is why I should have the time to help her. I recorded that call and played it for my parents, and that's what they're arguing about now. I wasn't going to post again, but here's a little more. My parents said they'll never force me to babysit my nephews again, and admitted last year was unfair. Right now, they're furious at my sister for telling me I should help because I have no life. My sister's playing the victim, and my brother-in-law is avoiding the whole mess by staying at work. Thank you to everyone who commented. You really made my day. My parents apologized. My sister did not, at least not at first. A week ago, I made this throwaway account to ask if I was the jerk, and it turns out I was anything but. I have too much to say to just post in "Am I the jerk?" as an update, so a friend suggested I share here instead. My original post there basically opened a Pandora's box in my family. For years, my parents and older sister had gotten very comfortable relying on me to help with childcare for my young triplet nephews. I didn't move out of my parents' house until I was 22, because I was trying to save money while going to college. My scholarship covered most of the costs, and staying at home kept me from sinking into debt since I was only working part-time. I'm grateful for that, but after college, everyone just seemed to assume I had unlimited free time. That's how they convinced me to join a family vacation. But during that so-called vacation, I was basically forced to babysit my 3 6-year-old nephews. I even had to share a hotel room with them, and those kids did not listen to me at all. On the first night, I had to call their mother twice just to get them under control, and then I was treated like the bad guy for wanting to do anything else on the trip. If it wasn't something the family enjoyed as a group, it didn't happen, which felt hypocritical, because I'm family too, but my preferences weren't considered. I definitely voiced that grievance to my parents after my last post, and to their credit, they admitted they were in the wrong. After that awful trip last year, I decided it was time to move out. I did it before summer even ended, and I gave no warning, which shocked everyone. I'd landed a great job right after college thanks to an internship, and I used the move as an excuse to cut my commute from 45 minutes down to 15. My sister hated this most of all because it meant no more free weekend babysitting, but she still tried to rope me in whenever she could. I gave in occasionally, usually bribed with pizza, and that somehow became the new normal. Then, last month, my parents announced plans for another family vacation at the same beach spot. They basically wanted it to go exactly the same way as last time. I immediately saw the trap. If I rode with my parents and let them cover the hotel rooms, I'd end up screwed over again. So, I casually said I'd drive myself and pay for my own hotel. That's when the storm hit. Once my parents realized they couldn't corner me into babysitting, they practically begged me to reconsider. My sister went further, trying to gaslight me and order me to go with the flow. News flash, I didn't. After days of harassment, I finally made my "Am I the jerk?" post. Less than an hour later, my sister somehow spotted it. That's when everything blew up. At first, my whole family was against me. My sister called our parents, and then they called me while also reading my post. I asked them straight up if anything I wrote was untrue. They dodged the question, calling it an exaggeration. But I pointed out specific details, proving my story was accurate. Then, I told them to check the comments. There were already far too many to read, but I was refreshing the page on my computer and telling them how fast the numbers were climbing. I told them I was tired of their keep the peace mentality, which always came at my expense to appease my sister. Then, I said I was out of time and had to go. Meanwhile, my parents were horrified that hundreds, then thousands of strangers were leaving comments within hours. Later, I told them the numbers had doubled again and were still growing, which only added to their shock. I think that forced them to take a hard look at their own actions. My sister also tried calling me while I was at work, but my phone was on silent until lunch. She left a bunch of messages and texts and eventually got through when I sat down to eat. Her main point was that my post had pulled our parents away from her side, and now they were mad at her. In the argument that followed, my parents ended up canceling the entire vacation. Later, they admitted they'd just been passing blame out of embarrassment and finally accepted full responsibility. They told me flat out that no excuse could justify making me the default babysitter, especially when I didn't even live at home anymore. They did try to soften it later by pointing out that they never charged me rent while I was in college, but I reminded them that kids don't ask to be born, and I was doing everything I could to make my own way. Then I pointed out that my father had gotten the same kind of advantage from his parents. He lived at home free of charge while he went to college. That shut down whatever argument my parents had left. When my sister called me at lunch, I laid out the facts, and she showed her true colors. She implied I had no life, and that my free time on weekends should revolve around helping her because she's too tired to manage and can't go out, unless someone's watching her kids. She's a stay-at-home mom with a husband who earns a good salary. They live in a nice house they own outright, not rent. My nephews are not my responsibility, yet they kept forcing them onto me and expected me to accept it forever. My sister hung up on me in anger, but I had recorded the call and played it later for my parents. They were furious, and it basically sparked a war between them and my sister. My sister dug in, blamed me, and doubled down on her belief that my life should revolve around hers. I told her that was the most entitled and narcissistic thing she had ever said about me. It took a few days, but her husband finally stepped in and made her apologize. I had never seen her so cowed before. She was practically on the verge of tears. That's when it came out that one of the reasons I was always the go-to babysitter was because she didn't trust strangers. It was never about money. Or maybe it was. My brother-in-law thought she had been paying me properly for my time watching the kids after I moved out. But she hadn't even given me gas money, just a little cash, barely enough to order pizza for myself and the kids while pocketing the rest. Oh, she had been short-changing me for months. When that came out during her half-hearted apology, my brother-in-law exploded at her. He forced her to pay me everything she owed out of her own savings, which she was clearly bitter about. He also apologized to me for his inaction in letting her walk all over me and promised they'd hire a real babysitter from now on. It might cost them a little, but at least my sister will get her date nights back without dumping responsibility on me. A few evenings ago, we had a family meeting at my parents' house where everything was laid bare. There were apologies all around, and then my parents reinstated the family vacation. I still plan to drive myself and pay for my own hotel. If my sister tries to shove childcare on me again, I'll even stay in a completely different hotel. I've already stated this, and she's promised it won't happen. If I don't post another update after the vacation in a month or so, you'll know everything went fine. My sister called me, demanding I take my posts down. She's more upset than ever knowing how far they've spread. Having family that knows about your Reddit account definitely has its disadvantages. Yesterday, she called me after work and asked if comments were still coming in. She admitted she can't stand to look at them herself because they're all so harsh toward her. I was blunt and told her that yes, at least 10 comments still come in daily, and most say the same things about her behavior. She broke down crying, begging me to delete the posts. I refused. I told her she can cry to whoever she wants, but the posts are staying because they're my insurance that she won't try to treat me like garbage anymore. After all, she literally acted like my life should revolve around hers. She didn't pay me the babysitting money she owed and pocketed it herself, and she forced me to spend the last family vacation stuck as the permanent babysitter while I had no fun at all. Is it really any wonder people are so angry at her? Then I told her that the posts had already spread to other sites. Some articles had been written about my situation, and even videos were made reading it aloud. My sister shrieked when she heard that and hung up. Later, my parents called, begging me to take the posts down. I refused again, reminding them that none of this would have happened if they'd defended me from the start. I told my sister she needs to treat me like an equal, not a servant. I'm not her butler, babysitter, or handyman. I'm her brother, and I'm a grown man. Wouldn't anyone be tired of this crap if they were in my shoes? My parents admitted they would, but they still begged me to take my posts down. I refused and said I'd keep posting more if they didn't start standing up for me when my sister came crying to them. Let her clean up her own messes. After all, their years of enabling her are what led to this. I didn't father those kids. I have a life of my own, a career I'm just getting started in, and hopefully soon a girlfriend, since there's someone I want to ask out. My life is moving forward, and I won't let myself be held back. They can either step aside or keep enabling my sister, but I told them straight up that the latter won't end well for them. The only way my posting on Reddit stops is if the drama itself stops. I've kept everything anonymous, and I have every right to vent my very real frustrations. That left my mother in tears and my father silent. I told them their tears don't sway me. They already know what it will take to end this. Stop enabling my sister. Later, my sister called me again to yell. She said our parents had told her they weren't getting involved anymore and that she'd have to figure things out herself. They even told her to be nicer to me. I could practically picture her eye twitching in frustration. Be nice to her little brother? She probably wanted to Google how. Yeah, I was sarcastic to her, and it left her crying too. After I hung up, my brother-in-law called. He was upset I was still posting and making his wife cry, but I explained everything. He admitted he understood and promised he'd talk to her again. Hopefully, this drama finally ends here. The family vacation is still on for late June. I've already booked my own room and requested a day off work so I can leave on Friday. My room isn't anywhere near the ones my parents, sister, brother-in-law, and nephews will be using. It's not even on the same floor. When we're at the coast, if it's not a planned family activity, I'll be off doing my own thing. I'll tour the art galleries, eat my fill of local food, and finally enjoy being carefree for once. The family vacation is now over, and some things went both good and bad. The good: my parents didn't enable my sister's attempts to force me into babysitting. The bad: my sister still tried to find out which room I was in, but she failed and got in trouble with her husband again. Before the trip, I made sure to tell the hotel that they were not allowed to give out any of my information to anyone except the police if there were some kind of emergency. They assured me they wouldn't, but I emphasized that I knew for a fact some hotels still cave under pressure, so I wanted to cover myself. I even told them if my mom, my sister, or 3 crying boys tried to guilt them at the desk, they had better not cave. They awkwardly promised me no one but me would get access to my room, and I asked them to let me know if anyone tried. On the day of the trip, I left earlier than the rest of the family. I knew they wouldn't get moving before at least 10 a.m., so I hit the road at 9. Check-in wasn't until 1 p.m., but I wanted a head start. I sent out a quick FYI group text and was off on the 3-hour drive. My parents were upset because they'd planned a family brunch on the way, but I told them no one had ever mentioned that to me. So brunch was scrapped in favor of fast food, just as I'd planned. I arrived at the hotel too early to check in, but I reminded the front desk staff again not to give out my details. They insisted it wasn't their policy to do so, but I knew better and made it clear they shouldn't. After that, I left to get something to eat. When I came back an hour later, I noticed my parents' car and my brother-in-law's big SUV parked outside. I slipped into the lobby quietly, made sure it was clear, and then went to the desk to check in. If my family asked about me and where I was staying in the hotel, yeah, they did. But the clerk refused to tell them. My sister apparently pushed it, but her husband shut her down. I checked in, went to my room, and then called my parents. I didn't mention that I knew they had tried to get my info from the front desk, and they conveniently didn't bring it up either. Later, we all met up as a family to go out and explore. At one point, my sister asked me to watch her kids for just a moment. I immediately said, "Hell no," because I knew exactly what she was trying to pull. She'd act like she'd be gone for a minute and then disappear for an hour. I called her out right there, and her husband told her to stop trying to push the kids onto me. My sister's response? She started crying about how she needed a break. Her husband snapped at her, saying he was exhausted too, but he wasn't complaining. My mother shot me a nasty look, so I went right up to her and said if she so much as hinted that I should be watching those kids, I'd walk away from this vacation immediately. It's not my job, and I'm done with her and my sister acting like it is. That made my mother cry too, and she started repeating, you're right, over and over again. It was one of her old tactics, trying to look pitiful to guilt me, but I just said, I am right, so let it go, and walked away. Neither my mom nor my sister tried anything for the rest of the day. When we got back to the hotel after dinner, my family all crowded into the elevator. I didn't get in with them. They asked why, and I said I'd wait for the next one. My sister glared at me because she knew exactly what I was doing. I just sat in the lobby for 15 minutes watching YouTube on my phone, then took the elevator up alone. My room was on another floor at the opposite end of the hotel. I had a great night's rest. The next morning, we all went out for breakfast, but I made sure they left first. I was the last one out, just like I had been the last one in the night before. Breakfast went fine. I gave them a heads up that I'd be doing my own thing for most of the day. My mom tried to mention plans for the aquarium and a couple of other stops, so I agreed to meet them for those, but told them the rest of my time was mine until dinner. They accepted that, and the day went smoothly. That evening, back at the hotel, my sister caught me leaving my room. She must have been stalking the floor, searching for me. I had gone back to rest for a bit before dinner after all the walking, and when I stepped out to meet everyone, she tried to corner me. She said I'd ruined the family vacation for her because it felt no different from being at home, since she still had to wrangle her kids. I called her out, told her it was nonsense because our parents had been helping her a lot. I told her I was sick of this endless scapegoat act, that it was already over, and she needed to leave me the hell alone and live her own life. She kept yelling behind me, "Hey, I'm trying to talk to you." But I told her I didn't care and was heading to dinner. She followed me to the elevator, but I ignored her. When we got down to the lobby, I told my parents and brother-in-law that my sister had stalked me around the hotel to find my room. She got scolded like a child. Of course, she had a pity party right after, but I told her to stop milking it and grow up. The days of her forcing her will on me are long gone. Then I walked straight out to my car. This time, I was the first one to dinner. When everyone else arrived, my sister looked miserable, but nobody said a word about what had happened earlier, and that was just fine with me. She avoided me the entire evening, and I didn't care. I told everyone bluntly that unless there was an emergency, nobody was to knock on my door. I had a "Do Not Disturb" sign for a reason. On the final day, everything went perfectly. Neither my sister nor my mother bothered me at all. By then, they'd completely surrendered. Yes, during the whole vacation, I still played with my nephews a bit. I'm not a complete jerk. I didn't ignore them. I kept being the fun uncle, just not the babysitter uncle. The kids didn't seem to care. They just wanted someone to play with. I even bought each of them a little bag of crystals and polished stones as souvenirs. There was some mild drama between my sister and her husband, just little disagreements I didn't pay much attention to. All in all, I'd call the vacation a win, because it finally sank in for my mom and sister that the old way of doing things with me is over. I have my own life now. My mom and sister saw my last post. They really don't know when to leave well enough alone. Hey Mom, hey Sis, I told you that if you didn't stop, I'd go right back to Reddit, and here I am. The short of it is, they read my post and freaked out. My sister had been stalking my account for days, just waiting to see if I'd post. What did she expect? That I'd just say, "Everyone had a good time?" She called me in tears, saying I made her look like a bad mother. I told her, "Well, if the glass slipper fits," She argued with me more, but when I asked her to name anything in my post that was a lie, she couldn't. Every time she tried, I pointed out how the details were spot on. So, what does she do? She runs to Mommy. Then my mom actually showed up at my door demanding I delete everything. I told her no. That just gave me ammunition for another post. I made her leave crying. Later, I spoke with both my parents on the phone and bluntly told them that their years of enabling my sister created this toxic dynamic. I will never go back to how things used to be. If they still had hope for that, I snuffed it out for good. After that, they told my sister flat out to stop blaming me and to leave me alone. They can't handle the stress of my retaliation anymore. My sister had a full-on "no one loves me" pity party, and my parents had to snap her back to reality. My brother-in-law hasn't called me, which makes me think he's staying neutral. But this can't be good for his marriage, or for whatever relationship I still have with him. Out of respect to him, I'll say this. I'm sorry, man. Your wife just pushed me too far. Right now, my parents are insisting my sister get counseling. She can't keep trying to juggle motherhood with the habits of her old life. As they put it, it's time for her to woman up. Either way, I'm hoping this is my last post. Hear that, sis? If you don't stop thinking I'm your personal servant, babysitter, watchdog, whatever, and keep acting like the whole world is against you just because you can't boss me around anymore, then we can't be around each other. Maybe, if you're willing, we can move past this. But don't give me a reason to write another post. From here on, anything I write will be about how I'm treated. Treat me like a decent human being and this ends. Capiche? My parents and I had a long talk. They apologized and we agreed I'll keep some distance until Thanksgiving. I also had a man-to-man talk with my brother-in-law over a couple of cold beers. He told my sister that if she didn't get counseling, he'd separate from her. They're in the process of finding her a counselor now. He admitted that while my sister was a nightmare to me at home, she's a loving and caring wife to him. But she also confessed that she liked being an only child. Since we're almost a decade apart, she held on to resentment about me for years and let it fester. She admitted she needs counseling and agreed to go as soon as it's arranged. They've also hired a qualified babysitter for my nephews. On top of that, my brother-in-law admitted he was angry with me too, but didn't step in when I needed him. We agreed this was just an ugly situation that needed to end, and from here on, we'll let it rest in peace. And lastly, these posts actually got me a girlfriend. The girl I like suspected it was me after reading them and was just waiting for me to say something. We're going on our first date tonight. So thank you to everyone here for your incredible support. I really needed it.